Hello and welcome to A Note with Imre, and I thought I would do a video on adjusting the bridge of a mandolin. And I had a question asked on another video of mine where I just tuned the mandolin in regard to, the notes are getting sharper down the neck, and I thought to myself, well, that's basically because the bridge is not in the right spot. And I had the same problem too, and I just play solo, so I never really bothered doing anything with it until I thought, I might as well do a little bit of adjustment with it and see if it does indeed help. And I ended up with some really good results, so I thought I would share what I did. I just want to make clear that, I'm not a professional luthier. I don't build instruments or anything like that, so if you're not comfortable doing this to your own instrument, definitely, seek out a professional, check out a shop around your neighborhood or whatnot, and then talk to somebody there. I'm sure, it doesn't cost too much to do something like this. In addition, you do want to be careful because you can potentially damage the finish of your mandolin when you move the bridge around, but I'll give you some tips. I have some photos that I took, as well as the end result when I actually play some of the notes. I've got a electronic tuner, and you can see the video of just how precise you can actually get if you do a little bit of work with it. One quick note I will make is if you want to get your instrument in tune, sometimes it does help to change your strings. I had really old ones, so I just went to the local shop here and I did restring my instrument. So I've got brand new strings on here. If your strings are starting to be a little bit old and they sound a bit dull, you might want to do that as well. Strings are generally pretty cheap. I got mine for around like $5 or $6. A quick word about new strings for those unfamiliar to this. New strings need time to adjust as they stretch out a little at first. In other words, one moment they're in tune, the next they're out. So after you've restrung, either play with your instrument for at least half an hour to an hour, or let it sit for several hours before doing the following. Otherwise, your results may be somewhat unpredictable. Now let's start adjusting that bridge. The first step is to loosen all of the strings just enough that the bridge can be fairly easily moved around on the mandolin. Too tight and it's both difficult to move and it may damage the instrument. Too loose and the bridge will be difficult to keep in place. The next thing I did was to center each pair of strings on their respective sections on the bridge, or really the saddle. When I bought my mandolin, the grooves for the strings were not in the center, but I managed to gently massage most of them over. However, the thickest strings, as you can see here, I left in their original positions as they kept rolling back into their original spots. If I did want to correct this, I could do a little woodwork to it or replace that section, but they're not that far off and I can personally live with this. By the way, that alternating pattern on the saddle is there because thicker strings need to be a little longer in order for proper intonation. Notice that the thicker pair of the wound and unwound strings are compensated like this. Great, so at this point the string pairs are more or less centered, but it would also be nice to check if all of the strings float nicely in about the middle of the fretboard. If you choose to eyeball your setup like I have, then you can look down the neck as shown in this photo. Not only is this a good way to see if the outermost strings are an equal distance from the sides of the fretboard, but it's fairly easy to determine if the strings are equally spaced apart, both the pairs and the pairs from each other. Now we arrive at the step to shift the bridge up towards the head of the instrument or down towards the bottom. If you're not sure which direction to move, take a look at this. If the notes you fret down the neck become sharper, that is higher in pitch, then the bridge needs to be moved towards the tail or bottom of the mandolin. If the fretted notes become flatter, that is lower in pitch, then the bridge needs to be shifted towards the head or top of the instrument. In my case, the notes were getting sharper, so I moved the bridge down. But after trying a few locations, I also noticed that I needed to quite substantially lower the side of the bridge where the thickest strings are. These close-up photos show where my bridge was previously by the slight marks left on the finish, and it's possible to see that the bridge had to be moved several millimeters more than the side where the thinner strings are. The cool part, though, is the end result. I've placed my electronic tuner next to the mandolin so you can see how accurate the tuning can get just by shifting that bridge. Here are the strings played open. and now played at the 7th fret. Lastly, all the way at the 12th fret. No more sharp notes, and if I ever play with other musicians or backing tracks, I'm sure this will sound a lot better. So I hope you found this video useful. I am going to write a quick blog post with some links to mandolin sites, and you can check those out. And I do have Facebook, Twitter links there too. And do feel free to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And I do hope to see you next time. Take care.